Hi there. Well, it's spring. I feel like there's enough daylight left to actually record a video, even though it's kind of late in the day. So let's go ahead and do this. I know starting this tarot unboxing channel, I have been opening up a couple things that haven't even turned out to be tarot decks. We did that last time. If you guys watched Urania's Mirror, I thought it was going to be a tarot deck, and then it turned out to be, it was still cards, it was astrology cards, but I'm pretty sure that what I have for you guys today is an actual tarot deck, hopefully. So I order a lot of things, I order books and stuff like that, but I'm pretty sure that this is a deck. So this arrived in the mail, and it's from the bargainbookstores.com. And so I have a feeling that this is probably something that I ordered on Amazon. So let's go ahead and open it and check it out. Wow, this is standing up to the old butterfly knife here. Okay, we do have a tarot deck. We're in luck. This is cool. This is actually something that just came out. So this is called the After Tarot. And this is the second deck in this series that's created, I believe, by the same artist that made, oh gosh, what's the other one called? It's, there was a similar kind of idea that came out by this publishing company, Lo Scarabeo, I think is how you say it, a few years ago, and it was called the Tarot of the New Vision. And in that deck, if you're not familiar with it, what they did was they took the images from the Rider-Waite Tarot and they reimagined them as if you were looking at the same image but from an 180-degree angle. So rather than looking right at a figure, it's almost like you're looking through that figure's eyes, or you're standing behind them, kind of seeing what they're seeing. So you see court cards from behind the throne, not looking at them. Sometimes they have little things like hiding behind the throne. You see the perspective of the figure in the card. And it was a really, really neat idea. And I loved looking at that deck because it actually was interesting to see, of course, the artist's interpretation of what they thought was also going on in that scene. But I also found that in some of those cards, exactly what I would have imagined to be going on just out of the range of the edge of the card was the same thing that these artists had seen as well. So this deck is called the After Tarot. And what they've done here is they've imagined if you sped that image or the scene in that card up just a minute, what happened right after that picture would have happened. So it says Tarot, One Moment After, by Pietro Aligo and Corinne Kenner. Artwork by Giulia Francisca Massaglia. I'm sure that I'm butchering these names. They're Italian names. And I believe that Lo Scarabeo is an Italian tarot publishing company. So I think that this is the same people that made the Tarot of the New Vision, but I'm not 100% sure. I think I remember that it was two brothers that might have made that one. I'll go ahead and read you what it says on the back here. What will happen to the arcana you know one moment in the future? Most of us are familiar with tarot card images. They've become a part of our collective wisdom, snapshots in time, frozen in place, permanent and unchanging. But the river of time is constantly flowing, and the tarot cards we are used to seeing don't tell the whole story. The fool doesn't stand on the cliff forever. What if you could see beyond the here and now, a glimpse of the future? That's what the tarot is about after all. What if you could know what happens to the fool a few seconds after he steps off the cliff? Okay, so I find that interesting because that's oftentimes when I'm teaching tarot, what I tell my students is don't view the cards as static images, that they are just unmoving, and that they're just a single moment in time. Picture them like a actual moving picture. Imagine exactly that. What's coming up next? What got them up to the point where they're at now? I'll often suggest that you imagine that you could rewind the picture and see what that person was doing right before they got in that situation. So it's interesting to think about that in terms of what will happen right after that situation. Now, I believe this to be like a deluxe edition of this kit because it's not just the cards. It's coming in this box. This is kind of cool, this magnetic box. Wow, actually, this is really cool. And as I recall, this was not an expensive thing to order. And I want to say it might have been about $30, but comparable to the price of just buying the deck alone. This seemed like a really nice option, and it has a book here, Afterthoughts, the guide to the after tarot. So we see really actually a very nice book with full color pictures here. I guess it's not full color on every single page of the deck, but it gives a lot of info on the cards. And this is what the cards look like. So this is the kind of box that you could actually keep the cards in this box, and I probably will. Most of the time I say throw the box away. It's not really the best thing for your cards to keep them in a box, but that's probably what I will do here. So I'm just going to go ahead and open these up. You can see on the front there is the title card. Oh, the backs of these cards are beautiful. Look at these. So you can see the white lilies and the red roses, and we see these throughout the cards. These are both found in the Garden of the Magician. So red roses represent desire, and white lilies represent truth. So when we see those two things together, they're balanced. They're kind of similar to the mind and the heart. Now you'll also see on the Fool has a white rose. So if we know that red roses represent desire, we know that white, you can imagine, represents purity. So put that together, white rose represents purified desire. Now our first card here is the Fool, and it looks like he has decided to go ahead, step off of the cliff, and he's dangling there and doesn't seem to care that he has is falling. He's more interested in smelling his rose than he is in saving his own life, and he's lost his satchel there. The dog is kind of seemingly concerned, but he doesn't seem to be concerned at all. Here's the Magician, and he's making all of his magical tools. These are called the magical weapons, float there off of the table. He's got a dove there. Maybe he's a little bit more of a prestidigitator. That means somebody that does sleight of hand magic. And you can see the red roses and the white lilies there in his garden. The balance of the mind and the heart. Here's the High Priestess, and at first glance, she really doesn't look any different than the High Priestess in the standard Rider-Waite deck that we know, except she's holding a couple of keys in her hand. So that seems to be the only difference that I'm noticing, is that she has those keys. We see those keys also at the feet of the Hierophant. Here's the Empress, and the Empress has swans and little swanlings down by her feet, so it seems that those creatures have come to spend some time with her. And I feel like she's also raising her scepter up higher than we would see in the regular deck. Here we see the Emperor with his ram. Of course, the Emperor corresponds to Aries, so there is his animal there. Let's go ahead and move forward a little bit. And, oh, this is kind of interesting. So after the lion has been tamed, there she is giving the lion a hug, and the lion looks very happy for that. Huh. Here's the hermit. The hermit standing up at the top of his mountain, shining his lantern down so that he can show other people how to also climb the mountain that he's climbed. And here he has a serpent, and he has a black dog, maybe a wolf there with him. So he has maybe some animal medicine, some animal guides that he has acquired as part of his journey. And I always say about the hermit's journey, you know, because he's the hermit, it does indicate a more isolated kind of existence. But it doesn't mean that the hermit's completely alone. It just means that the hermit has a very specific vibration of who and what he is going to encounter on his journey. And there will be other seekers climbing that mountain. He's taking the path less trodden, but that doesn't mean that he is doing it completely alone and that his path doesn't cross other seekers' paths along the way. So I want to take a look at the minor arcana. So I'm going to go ahead and move through these majors. Here we have the Ace of Cups, and now the hand, which represents the hand of Source coming out of the clouds, coming out of the negative veils of existence there, has set the cup down, and we see this heart. It's very reminiscent of the heart on the Three of Swords, and the dove is now flying off into the sky. Here's another card which shows an embrace after the initial greeting of the Two of Cups. They're embracing there. We see the little cat. Now, I will say one thing that I like about this deck, which I was not really too sure about. One of the things that I don't always love about some of the Los Scarabeo decks is sometimes the imagery is a little bit too comic booky looking for my tastes. I know a lot of people really like that look, and for a certain style of deck that is appropriate if I'm going for like a comic-y looking deck. But sometimes the way that the figures are drawn, it makes me feel more like I'm reading a graphic novel than that I'm doing a tarot reading. Now, don't get me wrong, I love my graphic novels, and maybe I can make a video about that someday. Definitely would recommend right off the top of my head, if you are an enthusiast of esoteric and occult things, definitely check out Promethea. That's Alan Moore that wrote and illustrated that. The Invisibles is great. I think that's Grant Morrison. I could be wrong, but there are definitely some interesting comic book wizards. Alejandro Jodorowsky has amazing graphic novels. The Incal, I don't know if that's how you say it, I-N-C-A-L, is really, really great. But these cards are not, the characters, you can see what I'm talking about. Like they have a little bit of that sort of comic book style, but not as much as some of the decks do. And the other thing that I like about this is a lot of times on the Los Scarabeo decks, they have a border that has the name of the card in 4 different languages. You guys have seen decks that have that before. And sometimes once in a while that's interesting, but I find that more often than not, it's just kind of distracting and unnecessary. And I like to have a nice clean border on my card if I don't need to have, the name of the card in 4 different languages. So there's nothing here that I'm finding that's really blowing my mind as far as what happened after this image. But I do think there's some interesting things. Here's the guy from 4 of Cups. He's just taken that 4th cup. The hand is gone, and he's actually dumping it out there. It's just this little cloud. And I'm always questionable about that 4th cup that's up there. if that's really coming from source or if it's some kind of an illusion. Oh, this is a good one. Okay, Eight of Cups, the classic breakup card, right? So this guy has left the scene. He's usually here more in the foreground, but leaving the scene. And now we see this woman here looking into the empty cups, and it's very reminiscent of the Five of Cups with the two cups spilled over and these ones still standing. So she's kind of wondering, hey, what happened? Where did you go? Ooh, okay, this is a good one. I love this one. Four of Coins. Now, this guy's sitting usually on a stoop, and he's got all of his coins. He's holding one over his head, and one on his lap, and two under his feet, just as if to say, you know, I have everything the way I like it. But it's the illusion of security. It's holding on so tight to just having things the way that they are that you're either not being flexible to anything new coming in, or potentially thinking everything's going to stay the same, which it never does. Things always change. So look at what happens right after that. Dun, 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 dun. Here comes Death. Yeah, with his sickle. So it's very true. I always say, if you pulled this card, this is your guide's way of telling you, you need to be the hanged man. You need to hang loose, let it go, be willing to use a lighter touch on this stuff. Otherwise, you know, this is kind of implying, hey, you can hang on to this all you want in your life, but you don't get to take it with you, right? So what good is money if you don't really, you know, if you don't enjoy your life, if you don't spend it on anything? So that's a pretty good one. This is a card that I really loved in the other deck, in the Tarot of the New Vision, where we see this guy and he's making these pentacles. Now look what he's done. He's not just kind of banging them out one after another, but he's actually using some of those to create this very beautiful stylized piece. It almost reminds me of something that we might see in the Three of Pentacles as a finished product of the creation of that that work that they're doing there. So it looks like he has made some artwork here. Here's the Two of Wands and the classic man there holding the world. He has a woman that's come to join him. Again, we see the white lilies and the red roses here, just like we see on the back. I'm very into the back of these cards. So I'm glad that they look that way. And as far as the weight and the texture, they're not super glossy. They're not plastic coated. Well, they are glossy. They are regular cardstock. There's nothing really special to me about the quality of these cards. They're just kind of standard paper. They're not the kind of cards that are going to necessarily hold up a long time. But I also don't know if I would see using this as like a regular all the time tarot deck. The reason why I bought this deck and the reason why I bought the Tarot of the New Vision is really more just out of a curiosity of seeing images that would expand my ideas of what these cards meant, more so than using them for actual divination and interpreting them. So let's just take a look at a few more. This is a nice one. Six of Wands. So you see the character here. He's taken his victory wreath down and he's actually placing that on the head of a girl here. Oh, here's a good one. So Seven of Swords. You know, this guy is always kind of cruising away from the scene of the crime or whatever it is that he has been carrying these swords away from. And look, he's about to step in this lasso and he's completely unaware of it. So that just goes to show he thinks he's getting away with something. And a lot of times the way that I interpret this card is somebody who thinks that they're not hurting anyone else. You know, it doesn't matter. If nobody knows what they're doing, then they're going to just get away with it and no one will be the wiser. But as we know, you know, karma is real, and you don't just get away with things just because people do not know about what you did. You are always being watched. So let's go ahead and take a look in the book real quick. This last card here, King of Swords, and we see he's got a hawk there that's landed on his arm, his sword down in the ground there. So, King of Swords, let's see what we can find out about him. The imposing King of Swords has thrust the tip of his sword through a golden crown, kind of invoking Ace of Swords, right? Driving it deep into the dusty ground at his feet. A falcon is perched on his ungloved hand, waiting for orders that will change the course of destiny and fate. The king's throne is carved with emblems of butterflies. All right, I have a bone to pick. How many times have you guys read a tarot book where all it did was describe the picture, and you're basically going, hey, I got eyeballs. I can see the picture. I can see there's a falcon sitting on his ungloved hand. He's thrust his sword down. What are you telling me about what this card actually means? I understand sometimes they might want to point out a certain detail, but I find it unnecessary to talk about exactly what it is that you're looking at. And I know I'm probably also will do that in these videos when I'm telling you, hey, look, this is something that has roses and lilies on it, and you're going, yeah, I can see it. We're looking at it with you. So I guess I just wish that there was a little bit more on the interpretation end of things, and not just, well, this is what the card looks like. But it actually looks like it might just be because that was a court card. Now that I'm seeing some of the other cards in here, for instance, the devil. Here's a major card. Face your demons. The devil represents the dark and shadowy side of our existence. With tongue firmly in cheek, he demonstrates how a selfish devotion to material possessions and ill-conceived passions can tie us down and keep us from true happiness. Okay, so then it goes into describing what the card looks like, and there is much more explanation of all of the different symbols, what the different things in the devil card symbolizes, what the throne means, what the inverted pentagram means. We know what that means, right? The pentagram, it's the 5 elements represented by each of the 5 points. The top point of an upright pentagram, like my tattoo right here, represents spirit. So it's spirit ruling over the 4 elements. When the pentagram is inverted, as it is in the devil card, the elements are up above and spirit is down below. So what that indicates is that it's the earthly elements that rule over spirit. In other words, that it is the material, tangible surface existence that is more important than the spiritual existence. I disagree. So that is a look at the after tarot. I think that these are interesting. I definitely am going to spend a little bit more time going through each of these cards, and I think that I think that these are definitely a deck that's interesting to have. Would I recommend buying this? I'll be honest with you guys, I'm not super blown away. I would say that if you are actually going to get one or the other of these decks, I think that the Tarot of the New Vision is actually a little bit more interesting than this deck is. But there's still something to be said if you're a tarot enthusiast for taking a look at this artist's interpretation. And I do think that it's probably worth it to go ahead and buy the nice edition and get the nice box. It's pretty cool. All right, you guys, thanks a lot for watching. Please subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.